Hey, Waymaker.Church, thanks for joining us in this week's Action Step video. My name is Matt, and this is Emma.
Hey, guys.
And so we're excited to be coming to you guys. This is the final week of our Voice of God series, so it's our final Action Step video. And you guys know that this series is all about making sure that we hear from the voice of God. And how do we do that when life is busy and life is noisy? Well, we've got to put other things to the side, and we've got to develop healthy habits, healthy rhythms, and these disciplines in our lives that enable us to hear from Him. And so, Emma, this week's topic that we're going over is submission.
Yeah, guys, I don't know about you, but I've loved this series. It's been so impactful. And just talking about all these different spiritual disciplines have been amazing. And so each one that we've talked about this far has been kind of like about ourselves, like reading the Bible more, praying more. It's kind of all self-focused with Jesus. But submission's a little different. Submission relates to other people, and relating to other people can sometimes just be messy. You know this, I know this, but what does that look like exactly? So here it is. Submission is prioritizing God's desires above your own desires. It also means putting others before yourself by not always doing what you want to do. And so there's kind of two parts here. So the first is, like we said, putting God's desires above our own. And then the second relates to other people and putting others before ourselves, which doesn't always come naturally, because I don't know about you, but I can have pride sometimes. And this can be really hard. Matt, I don't know how you feel, but I kind of struggle with submission sometimes.
Yeah, not me. Nope. I'm good. I'm just kidding. Obviously, yes, I struggle with this. I am a selfish person. Having been married for almost a decade, having 3 kids, yes, I can promise you that I'm selfish. And so this is the reminder that I need, that we all need, to say, hey, the best way to live as we look through scriptures, we look at the life of Jesus, is to live this life that is submitting to others. It is placing others above ourselves, because that's what we see Jesus do. Another way that we want to make sure that we're not confusing you guys, another way to look at this, submission, it's not thinking less of yourself. It's not putting yourself down by saying, woe is me, but it's thinking of yourself less often.
Yeah.
And so it's increasing how much we're listening to God's priorities and God's wants in our lives. And when we do that, when we're more concerned about what He wants, then we're more concerned about other people, because that's, again, the way that Jesus lived. And so we become less focused on ourselves. Again, that's who Jesus was the entire time, up until the cross. He's in the Garden of Gethsemane. You see Him saying to God the Father, I don't want to do this, but Father, your will be done, not mine. And Emma, that's the encouragement that I need and that we need as we look at this idea of submission.
Yeah. I mean, Jesus was the ultimate example of submission. He lived His life perfectly submitted to God the Father. And I think it's such a good example for us, and the perfect example for us, because this is so not natural for us as human beings. This is so not natural for what our culture says. But when we start to practice this, we start to look more like Jesus. Mm-hmm. We start to look less like the culture and more like Him. And it's easier to love others well when we're putting ourselves aside, when we put aside our own opinions and our own desires and wants and needs, and we start to look at other people, that's looking more like Jesus. Yeah. And that's just practicing the life that Jesus laid out for us. It also is really helpful, because that's how you hear God more clearly, when you're actually submitting to His will.
Yeah, so true. And Paul talked about this some more. In Philippians 2, he says, don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others, but rather, he says, be humble, thinking of others as better than yourselves. Don't look out only for your own interests, but take an interest in others too. And as you said,
so good.
When we're doing this, it's not about me, what I want, my next toy, my next phone or watch or car or whatever, but rather I'm thinking about other people. And now I'm inviting God's voice into my life, and I'm not just listening to my own voice of what I want. And so to go along with this, the action step, the practical thing we want to encourage you guys to do this week is to decide to give up your preference for the good of someone else for no other reason, not for selfish reason, but for no other reason than to demonstrate love. And so, Emma, we've talked about this. You can do this with a neighbor, a coworker, a spouse, a friend, doing that house chore that maybe that your spouse is supposed to do, cutting your neighbor's lawn. I don't know. Pray to God. Ask Him to give you time, to give you a moment to do that for someone else. And then, as I tell my kids, listen and obey. When God says to do it, when His Spirit reveals that moment, don't hesitate, don't delay. Obey, do it right away. So thanks again for watching this week's video. Emma, thanks for being with us as well.
Of course.
You can find more of this content, more of these resources on our webpage, Waymaker.Church/Voice of God. We hope you guys have a great week. We'll see you next time.